Hi guys, it's Legionero. Welcome back to my channel. Also would like to welcome all of my new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Today I'm doing a tutorial for a hobo bag. So I hope that you can see it. It's this really cute hobo bag. It has a magnetic snap closure. One of the things I love about this hobo bag, it has a facing attached to the lining, so if you wanted to do a recessed zipper, you could also do a recessed zipper in this hobo bag. I'm not showing you how to do a recessed zipper in this video, but I will link some videos in the description box below on how to do a recessed zipper when you have a facing and a lining. In this tutorial, I will show you how to draft your pattern as well as cut out and sew your pattern together. The only thing I'm not doing in the video is showing you how to fuse your interfacing to your fabric. But that's really simple. You take your main fabric and your interfacing, and your interfacing usually has a bumpy side and a smooth side. You fuse the bumpy side of your interfacing to the wrong side of your fabric using your iron. I have several different videos here on the channel where I have shown you how to fuse your interfacing to your fabrics. So when I link the videos on how to do a recessed zipper, I will also put the time of the video where you can find the fusing of the interfacing. There's a couple of things in the video I don't think I mentioned, so I'm going to mention them here. When you're cutting out your main fabric, you cut 2. When you cut your facing, you cut 2, and when you cut your lining pieces, you cut 2. Alright, I don't think I said that in the video. I may have said it in a couple of places, but I can't remember, so I just want to make sure I reiterate that here. If you are using a cotton cloth fabric, you want to make sure that you use a fusible fleece, because you want to make sure that you give your bag a little bit of body. And you know, cotton cloth can be a little flimsy, so if you are using a cotton cloth fabric, make sure you fuse your fusible fleece to those 2 pattern pieces, and you would fuse those to the main pieces of your bag. I will also make sure that I put in the description box below how many pieces of each pattern piece you cut, how many pieces of interfacing you cut, and which pieces of interfacing to fuse to which pattern pieces. I will also write out a blog post that will include all of the tools and everything you're going to need to make this hobo bag. So let's get started. Let's talk about all of the tools you're going to need to create your hobo bag. So you're going to need some pattern paper. This is some paper that I got from IKEA, and I'll link all of these items in the description box below. But this is a roll of paper that I got from IKEA, and it also has a little stand that goes with it. It's really cute. But you can use any pattern paper that you have on hand. I've gotten pattern paper from the Dollar Tree. I've gotten it from Walmart. So wherever you can find it, you use it. Alright, you're going to need a ruler. You're going to need a pencil because we're going to draw out our pattern. I'm using a Sharpie so you can see it on camera. You're going to need your fabric. This is a canvas weight fabric that I got from Hobby Lobby, and this is a cotton cloth that I got from Joann's. You're going to need your interfacing. This is fusible fleece and this is woven interfacing, so you will need both. You will need your scissors. You need one for fabric and one for paper. Never mix your 2 scissors. If you try to cut paper with your fabric scissors, it will dull your scissors, so make sure you have one for fabric and one for paper. You need some pins or clips. I'll be using pins because you can pin through the fabric, but if you're using a leather, faux leather cork, make sure that you're using wonder clips or clips. You're going to need 2 D-rings. I'm actually using square rings. I just didn't have any to show you. because I've made the bag already. You're going to need a magnetic snap. You're going to need a seam ripper, a fabric marking pen or chalk roller, and also some pliers for your magnetic snap. If you don't have these pliers, you can use the end part of your seam ripper to fold in the prongs on your magnetic snap. And you need some pattern weights to hold down your pattern when you are cutting it out. And of course you need your sewing machine and coordinating thread. Alright, so let's get started by drawing out our pattern. Let's draw out our hobo bag pattern. So I will make sure that I place all of the measurements in the description box below for you. But let's go ahead and draw out your pattern. So the first line you're going to draw is the top of your hobo bag, which is going to be 15 inches. I'm using a marker. You should use a pencil, just in case you make mistakes. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to find the center of that 15-inch line that you just made, which should be 7.5 inches. And just make a little dot. All right. Now from that 7.5 inch mark, I want you to measure down 16.5 inches. All right. So measure down 16.5 inches and make a mark. I was cutting it really close there. All right. So at the dot you just made at your 16 inches, that's going to be the bottom of your hobo bag. So what we're going to do, the bottom of your hobo bag should measure 21 inches. All right, so half of 21 inches is 10.5. So at that dot you made at when you measured down 16 inches, place your ruler at 10.5 inches. So at the dot you made at 16 inches at the bottom, put your ruler at 10.5 inches on the dot, and you're going to go 10.5 inches to your left and 10.5 inches to your right, which will make 21. Okay, so now that we have your bottom line drawn, right? Your top line is 15, you measure down 16 inches, and your bottom line is 21 inches. So now what we're going to do, we're going to basically connect our lines. So it should be a slant. So you're just going to take your ruler and connect your lines. And do the same thing to the other side. So this is the body of your hobo bag. what we're going to do now is we are going to create our facing for our hobo bag. So at that, on your top line, at that 7.5 inch mark that you made, I want you to measure down 2.5 inches and make a dot. Right? So from the top, at the 7.5 dot that you made on your top line, on your 15-inch line, measure down 2.5 inches. And now you are going to just draw a line straight across. All right, and that's your facing. So go ahead and write facing. And then this bottom part I'm going to do hobo bag. So you can go ahead and write your instructions on here. You're going to cut 2 of your main fabric. So I'm just going to put MF for main fabric. I'm laughing because MF, you get it. You're going to cut 2 of your main fabric and cut 2 of fusible fleece. Right? For your hobo bag, you're going to cut 2 of your main fabric, 2 of fusible fleece. Now, with your main fabric, if you're using a cotton cloth, you want to use a fusible fleece as your interfacing. But if you're using something a little bit heavier, like a canvas weight fabric, which is what I'll be using, you can interface that with a woven interfacing, right? Because you don't want to make it too heavy, but if it's cotton cloth, you want to make sure it's sturdy enough, all right? So that's why you would cut 2 of fusible fleece if you're using cotton cloth. Of course, if you're using a leather or cork or faux leather, you won't need to cut out any interfacing for your facing and your main bag. Now, when you cut this out, cut all the way around, right? Don't cut this line for your facing. Cut all the way around your main bag. All right, so I did turn this around so you can actually see what it looks like the right way. All right, so I'm just going to cut around my pattern piece. All right, so here is your pattern piece for your hobo bag. Now, if you've ever made a bag ever, you're probably saying, what about the lining? All right, I'm going to show you how to cut out your lining when we get to the cutting section. But just to show you, we're going to fold down your facing, and this is what you're going to use to cut out your lining. I will show you how to do this when we get ready to cut our fabric. So when we get ready to cut our fabric, you will cut your main fabric out of the entire piece. Then you'll cut your facing, which will be just this top part, and then you'll fold down your facing and you'll cut your lining pieces. All right, and with the lining pieces you will cut 2. Again, I will show you all of this when we cut our fabric. All right, so that's why we didn't draw out a separate lining pattern piece. All right, the only other pieces, pattern pieces you need to draw out are your strap pieces. This strap piece measures 12.5 by 4 and is 4 because I'm using a 1-inch square ring, right? If you want a thicker strap, you can do 12 and a half by 6 if your hardware is 1.5 inches. So whatever size your hardware is, multiply that by 4 and you will be cutting your strap on the fold. So make sure you write fold at one of these ends. All right, I wrote it here. The other piece you need to cut out are your strap tabs, and your strap tab measures 4 inches by 2 inches. All right, I'll place all of this in the description box below, as well as I will write out a blog post for you all as well. So make sure you draw out your strap 12.5 by 4, and make sure we're cutting on the fold. When I cut it out, I'll make sure I tell you it's on the fold. And then your strap tab piece should be 4 by 2 inches, 4 inches by 2 inches, and you will cut 2 of these. All right, once you have all 3 of your pattern pieces drawn, now let's go ahead and cut out all of our fabric and our interfacing. All right, so the first thing you're going to do, you're going to cut out the main bag. So with the main bag, you're cutting out the entire pattern piece. And I also have a little bit of room over here on the side, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out my 2 strap tabs as well. Alright, so this is my main fabric. I'm going to cut out the facing. So I'm placing it on the edge of my fabric. So this means that your fabric needs to be nice and straight. You need to be cutting on a nice straight edge. I'm going to take some pattern weights and place them down. All right. And I'm just going to cut my facing. So the line that you drew on your facing should be on the edge of your fabric. All right, so now you have your facing cut. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, you can cut off the top part as you're facing and then tape it together when you want to make the bag again. Or you can just, once you create the whole bag and you draw your line here for your facing, you can just take another piece of paper that you can see through, place it on top, and trace your facing if you don't want to do it this way. I was trying to conserve paper. All right. So now you can take your facing piece and you can cut out your interfacing for it. If you're using fusible fleece or regular interfacing, you can use your facing piece as your guide to cut out your interfacing. All right, so now you're going to cut out your strap. Remember, your strap is cut out on the fold, so make sure your fabric is folded, right sides facing. Place your strap on the fold and you're going to cut 1. And you're cutting this out of your main. Right, so now you have 1 long strap piece, and now go ahead and cut out your interfacing for your strap piece the same way. All right, so now let's cut out our lining. So take your pattern piece and remember to fold over your facing. All right, place your pattern weights down. Make sure everything is nice and straight and cut around. So now, once you are finished cutting out your lining, go ahead and cut out your interfacing for your lining. Now, working with your main fabric, you should have 2 pieces. You're going to place them with right sides facing. Right, and you're going to pin down both sides and across the bottom. Once you're done pinning, you take it to the sewing machine, sew down both sides and across the bottom, and I am using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now you have your main piece sewn together. What we're going to do, I'm going to clip my corners. Just clip really close to the edge. And now we're going to square off our corners just a little bit more. So reach your hand on the inside and kind of put your pointy finger in the corner there. Line up your seam allowances. Right, make sure your seam allowances are lined up. And even if you have to put a pin through one side of the seam allowance and then the other side, just to make sure it's lined up nice and neat. Right, so you're going to take your ruler. My ruler has disappeared on me, but you're going to measure 1.5 inches, and then just take your fabric pin and just draw a line across 1.5 inches, and that's where you're going to sew. And do the same thing to the other side. So stick your pointy finger, people call it your birdie finger. Line up your seam allowances nice and neat. Just going to take another pin just to make sure. Alright, and again, take your ruler, measure 1.5 inches, take your fabric pin or chalk roller, mark your line straight across at 1.5 inches, and you'll sew on that line. Alright, once you have sewn across the corners of your bag, you can go ahead and trim down that excess. Don't cut through your stitching, right? Just trim that down a little bit, and do that on both sides. And now you can turn your bag to the right side so you can see what it starts to look like. Right. You can also take your strap and your strap tabs to the sewing machine, and you're just going to sew down both sides of your strap and then down both sides of your strap tabs. Once you have sewn down both sides of your strap tabs, take your D-rings, I'm using square rings, and just place your strap tabs through the square rings. And you're going to sew across the bottom just to base it in place. And you do that with both of them. Alright, so now that you have your strap tabs and your strap sewn, and your strap tabs are now sewn to your D-rings, so let's go ahead to preserve hardware. This is something that I like to do. So take one end, one strap tab, and one end of your strap. Place your strap through and fold it over. Right? That's about 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch. pin or clip it in place, and do the same thing to the other side. All right, take your strap tab, place it through the D-ring or square ring, whichever one you're using, and pin it in place about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, and stick your pin through or clip it through, and make sure you're doing the right side. So whatever side you folded over first, make sure you fold over that side the second time. And then you'll take it to the sewing machine and you'll sew across. Or if you want to get fancy, you can put some rivets there. All right, I'm just going to sew across for the sake of the tutorial. All right. All right, so now take your strap, take one end of your strap, and I'm just opening up my seam allowance on the inside. So on one side of your bag, take your strap, and the wrong side of your strap is facing up, because when you sew it and you pull it out, it's gonna be on the right side like this. So the wrong side of your strap is facing up. Go ahead and pin or clip it to the side of your bag. Alright, and make sure you keep it as neat and straight as possible, and pin the other side to the other side of the bag. At the seam, at your side seam. Right, again, make sure that your wrong side is facing up. All right, make sure it stays straight. Wrong side of the strap is facing up, and pin it in place. Right, so you have your strap. Take this to the sewing machine and you're just going to sew across to base this to hold it in place. All right, so now it's starting to look like a hobo bag. Now let's work with our 2 lining pieces and our 2 facing pieces. So I'll set one of each aside. Now your facing piece is kind of slanted, all right? So this is what it should look like once you sew the 2 pieces together. So you're going to take your facing piece, the longer edge, you want to flip it over and pin it to the top edge of your lining. All right, so when you flip it up, it looks like one full piece. All right, you'll take this to the sewing machine and sew down the top edge, and sew here at 3/8 of an inch down its top half. Do the same thing to your other lining and facing piece. You should have your 2 lining pieces with your facing sewn together. So I'm just going to set one piece aside and work with one. So the first thing you're going to do, because I didn't interface mine, I just put a piece of fusible fleece here, because this is the area where we're going to add our magnetic snap. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the center of your facing, which should be 7.5, because the top part should measure 15. All right, so 7.5 is your center point, and then you're going to measure down 1.25 inches. So measure down 1.25 inches from that center mark and place a mark. And everything you do to this lining piece, you're going to do it to the other lining piece as well. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the washer of my one of my washers for my magnetic snap, and there's a hole here. Right, there should be a hole in the center of your magnetic snap, and you should also have 2 open slots here. So go ahead and take your fabric marking pen, and you're just going to mark 2 lines using those 2 lines as your guide. All right. So now you're going to take your seam ripper, and you're going to just make a small slit. Don't make it too big. You can make it too small, but don't make it too big. You make it too small, that's fine. We can open it up a little bit more, but if you make it too big, you might not be able to hide that. All right. I'm also going to take this foam. This is not necessary. This is just extra protection here for my magnetic snap, because I didn't do too much interfacing. I didn't do any interfacing besides my fusible fleece here. And I just used my washer, the slits in my washer, to open up some slits in this foam. So take one side of your magnetic snap, and this is my male piece. Flip it over to the right side, and you're just going to place your male piece through the prongs through those slits that you made. All right. Then I'm just going to take the foam and place it over the prongs. And again, that's not necessary. I'm just doing it as extra protection. Then take your washer and place it on top. Grab your pliers. If you don't have pliers, you can use the edge of your seam ripper to fold over your prongs. Now you can fold over your prongs outward, or you can fold your prongs inward. I'm folding mine inward. I usually do outer, but I'm doing inward this time, right, to secure your magnetic snap in place. All right, so you're going to do the same thing to the other side of your lining. Find the center, measure down 1.25 inches, take your washer and mark the center using the center of your washer. Then also mark the slits. Take your seam ripper, open up 2 little holes in your slits. Take the female magnetic snap, place it through your slits, and then fold your prongs over. Now that you have your magnetic snap attached to both lining pieces, go ahead, you can snap them together. And now you're going to, they should be right side spacing. Now you're going to pin down both sides and across the bottom. Make sure that everything is lining up nice and neat. And you're also going to leave an opening in your lining. You can leave this opening in the side, or you can leave this opening in the bottom. It's completely up to you. I'm going to leave my opening in the side. So just a big enough opening where you can place your hand through. And this is so we can turn our bag to the right side when we sew our lining and our main bag together. Right, so you'll sew down both sides and across the bottom, making sure you leave an opening. You can either leave it in the side or you can leave it at the bottom. It's completely up to you. We just need a space to turn our bag once we're finished. All right, so down the sides, across the bottom, not forgetting to leave your opening. And your lining will be a little bit shorter than your bag at the bottom, and that's completely fine, because remember, when we sewed our facing, we sewed our facing 3/8 of an inch to our lining. So your lining will be about 3/8 of an inch shorter than your bag, just in case you were wondering. All right. All right, once you have sewn your lining together, leaving an opening in either the side or the bottom, I left my opening in the side seam. Just like you boxed your corner on your main bag, do the same thing to your lining. We put our hand on the inside of our bag. We matched our seam allowances. You measured in 1.5 inches. You sew across and trim it down. Right. So now grab your main bag and your lining. Your main bag, the right side is facing up. Your lining, the wrong side is facing up. You're going to place your main bag on the inside of your lining, and when you have your main bag on the inside of your lining, it should be right sides facing. Your main bag is on the inside of your lining. Alright, and they are right sides facing. Go ahead and match your side seams. The side seams of your lining and the side seams of your main bag. And pin or clip. It's a little thick in the side seam because of your strap tab. So you may want to use clips. Right. Make sure your strap stays straight. Right. Match up your other side seams. Alright, so now pin around the rest of the top of your bag. And I know I said this before, but make sure your bag is right sides facing on the inside. The right side of your main bag is facing the right side of your lining. Right, take this to the sewing machine and you're going to sew all the way around in 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so I'm going to remove my arm from my sewing machine. If you have one, you can remove it as well. I'm going to place my bag. And I'm going to sew around using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so trim down your seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. Now, using the opening that you left in the side or the bottom of your lining, go ahead and pull your main bag through. Make sure everything is nice and neat when you pull it through. Poke out all of your corners. Alright. So only thing left to do, go ahead and close up the opening that you left in the lining just by sewing really close to the edge. Then you place your lining on the inside of your bag. Once you have your lining on the inside of your bag, make sure everything is all nice and neat and straight. And you are going to top stitch all the way around the top of your bag. Right. If you use cotton cloth or a fabric that can be pressed, you can take this to the ironing board and press it so it'll be nice, neat, and straight. Take it and top stitch all the way around the bag and you'll be done. So that is it, guys. You now have this really cute and stylish hobo bag. You can make this bag out of a variety of fabrics. You can use a leather, not a really stiff leather or faux leather. Something that's not too stiff, that'll kind of be baggy a little bit. You can use cotton cloth, you can use denim, you can use a canvas weight fabric like I used in the video. So if you decide to make this hobo bag, don't forget to tag me on Instagram at LegionaireBPatterns. If you enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified each time I post a new video. I'll see you in my next tutorial.